Let's do it. Alrighty, here we go. My name is Marty Fox from White Fox. Now, here's the deal.
Well, it's another episode of WTF with the Fox and Shura Tap with you. And of course, with the Fox, Marty Fox. Great to be with you.
Thanks for having me back again.
In your own podcast. Thanks for having me. I mean, the great thing is we've already had a couple of great guests.
We have.
But it's not just about that, because I think the feedback I'm getting a lot is that it's great to hear from you. People really want to hear what you have to say about this business, about the industry, about yourself. So I think every time we come in here, we sort of broach a topic and it's off the top of your head. You've got no idea what we're going to talk about. That's what
Never do. And also a really good opportunity for people to, comment on things that they want us to unpack or want me to unpack.
Yep.
Whether it's in real estate or marketing or self-promotion or social media or family or health and fitness, like they're things that I've just got interests in. So, they're things that I enjoy doing and talking about. So for those of you that want to have any suggestions, just drop it in the comments.
Or guests. It's always good to, because there's the typical celebrity type guest, but there's a lot of interesting people out there that are worth having on who might create some incredible insight for our listeners.
Absolutely.
But onto you. I want to get back into the sort of kind of nuts and bolts of this business, because there's a million reasons why this business is interesting, apart from the fact that you created it just off the top of your head. You went, it's time to change the game. And the story is quite well known. You've talked a lot about where White Fox came from. But I remember meeting you just before you started White Fox, and you were very clear in your plan for the business. You laid it out on the table in front of me on a cafe. Tell me firstly about that moment, how you saw it being in those first few years to where it is now and what you thought it could become.
Look, to simplify and without sort of going down the rabbit hole of explaining it in its intricacies, which is what I've done, and you can see those videos online, but ultimately there was an opportunity in Melbourne whereby the majority of the top end sales, and when I say top end, I'm just talking blue chip locations. So your South Yarras, your Parans, your Albert Park, your Middle Park, St Kilda's, just those inner city suburbs. They were dominated, and the brands that I loved were the ones that were controlling those markets, which was Kane Burton, Marshall White, Jallis Craig, RT Edgar, Abercrombie. So there was boutiques that were running the game. And when I looked at those brands, and I wasn't at any of those brands, I was at a much smaller independent company. Those brands had the beautiful properties, but their people had no real differentiation. So I was late 20s, watching what was happening in America, over in Europe, seeing these companies that were, pushing the boundaries, and those businesses in Melbourne were all very similar. So they were all very conservative, they were very suit and tie, they were very auction prone, they were very heavy in print media, and none of them had a social presence or a very limited social presence. And I was really lucky enough to meet a guy by the name of Aidan Hathaway, and I explained where I saw the opportunity in real estate to take it to that marketplace and offer an alternative. So not be loud and cheap or brash, but to be very tailored and sophisticated in our marketing, but in a new age. And to add a difference in the fashion and the communication and the visual aesthetic and all those sorts of things. So that was the opportunity, but to be able to pull off that opportunity, it was about knowing how to do the job. So I thought of doing my own business at 21 in real estate. That's when I first wrote down White Fox. But it wasn't until I got to 29 that I believed that I had the client base and I had the self-belief to be able to go out and do it. So I wasn't grandiose in my thoughts thinking I'm going to go do it at 25. I really sat on this opportunity because I also wanted to do it without any business partners, because some of the things that we did were very nerve-wracking. Like they were scary, going out and calling an auction in a pair of shorts and Gucci slides, or, staying true to just having black and white photography as the main photo. When vendors are saying, I will only list if you make it color. And I would walk away from $3 million listings, $60,000 plus in fees, just by saying, no, I'm sticking true to this brand's values from an aesthetic and a tone perspective, because that's how a brand is built. So I never let the money get in the way of what we stood for. And I knew that if I had a business partner, there may have been friction in those early...
They might have said, no, we've got to go back colour, let's just,
Correct.
Yeah.
So, there was times where I was lucky that Charlotte and I were property flippers, and we had enough money to support that journey and that risk. And, you know, I see White Fox as that boutique that's been able to crack that blue chip market since the formation of, say, a Jealous Craig, which is, you know, 30 odd years plus, I think, in age. So that's why there's so many eyeballs on us with the rise of social media at the time of our launch and the rise of, you know, the noise and change that I brought to the industry with the fashion and the tone. But it was backed up by the results.
But that's an interesting point, because in a way, that's an incredible synergy. Because if you did this 10 years earlier, let's say you are 10 years young, 10 years older, and Instagram and this didn't exist, it would be a very different thing.
Well, it would have been the internet. And before the internet, it would have been the paper.
Yeah.
And before the paper, it would have been
But cutting through for the paper is a lot harder than what we're
absolutely,
doing
it's
now.
more expensive.
Yeah.
And that's where people could sort of really get a grasp of who we were because of how we were able to target people. So early on, a lot of our messaging and videos and so forth, I was actually sponsoring ads to be targeted to agents interstate. I had a vision to be a national boutique brand from the very beginning. From the very beginning, some of the earliest forms of our branding said Melbourne, Sydney, New York, London. Like, it was always there, but it's baby steps. You know, how do you go from 3 staff to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 30, and then the small business to medium business growth pains of then going back to 10.
Yes.
And then leapfrogging to become a large business at 50 plus.
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because I think that's where the interest lies. Because not to be too insular and talk just about ourselves, but I think given we've gone through that, you've gone through that with White Fox, and as you said, you've gone through really this, right? A growth phase, a pullback phase, and you're dependent on the market, and you depend on the people who walk through the door. You're very lucky in a way, and there's reasons for this, that we have some incredibly loyal, hardworking people who are the core and foundation of this business that you've now worked with for many, many years.
Many years.
Lana, Mike, these guys, Jesse Jones. If you
Pete
don't have those,
Rory
businesses
Stumbles.
can't grow, right?
Correct. So the nucleus of White Fox is as solid could be. And just going back to what we spoke about before about, you know, pushing those boundaries, what gave me so much fuel in those early years were the people that were interstate that would send DMs. I wouldn't know who these people were, but White Fox gave them, and, you know, it could be you guys listening here that saw White Fox as what the possibilities could be for themselves. And I know so many people that launched boutique brands all over Australia, in small towns, in major cities, but they had the self-belief solidified by what we were able to achieve. And these businesses now would be 4, 5, 6 years of age. And I love the fact that I know that it was the risk that I took early on that gave them the belief that they could go out and do it themselves. And they have. And they've been some of them have been incredibly successful, such as the Hives down in Canberra. You know, great mate of mine, you know, just people that are giving it a crack that saw that it could be done, and they're doing it.
So for you, with a business, if you were giving advice to someone who has a similar type of business in its early infancy, so a White Fox of 3 years old, who's looking to grow, when you look back at it, what were the turning points? What were the things you go, it could have gone another way?
I think any business that gets to that 3-year-old mark and I was having a conversation with somebody in Adelaide recently whose business is approaching that 3-year mark, and I said, this is the hardest period because the honeymoon starts to wear off. You know, the first year, it's incredible. It's new, it's fresh, you're innovating, you're making noise, people are jumping at you, throwing, you know, their self-belief behind your campaigns. And it's great. And that momentum rolls into year 2. And in year 2, you're starting to hire different people and you go, oh my God, I'm a business person, I'm growing this thing. And then year 3, things do start to change. You get a little bit tired. You've maybe had a couple bad hires. You're growing and you lose your consistency because of the scale. And then you navigate years 3 and 4, but you don't give up. And you start building out management and systems. Systems set you free. Processes set you free. And bringing people in that are better than you at those things is key. And most people that start a business, they've got that entrepreneurial flair, and they're normally the BDM. They're normally the one that brings in the biscuits. The key is trying to get to the point where you eliminate key person risk. So you fast forward from year 1, 90+% company revenue, to year 3, probably 80, to to year 5, year 6, I'm at sort of 50, 60%. When I had pericarditis, which was in year, call it 5/6, I was still 60, 65% company revenue. I get hit by a bus, this business is done. And now I'm under 5% because obviously referral business and past clients coming through, but I don't walk into houses and appraise them. I don't close any sales. And that transition, like what we discussed in episode 1, was the hardest thing because the owner of the business is the BDM of the business. It's the figurehead. And it was also why I didn't want the name of White Fox to be Marty Fox Real Estate. The whole idea and dream was to build a brand that was synonymous with luxury real estate design, social video content, great connection with its customer base, and known to push the boundaries. So that can't just be Marty Fox Real Estate. That is White Fox, and there's so many people here that are proud to say that they are White Fox. They're not me.
It's not just the people here though. This is the thing. So the next step of this is growth. Because as I said, you go through stages of growth and retraction and whatnot. You obviously had big plans from the start. As you said, you saw this as certainly a national business, potentially international as well. So when was the point where you went, right, we can do this? Because it's a two-part question. One is about how you grow and how you head to the other states, because there's an argument between franchising and ventures and all those sorts of things.
Yep.
And secondly, like the doubt and the financial risk that goes into doing that, because you could give away a lot of potential.
So first of all, the bank wants security. So when you're expanding, when you're running a business, when you've got overheads, they need security, and you need to be able to sometimes call on the bank to be able to expand, because for me, I didn't want to bring in any external partners or private equity or anything like that. I wanted to keep it all to the point where now, obviously, we've got partners interstate and overseas in New Zealand, but to get it to this point, you needed collateral. And the banks always want the 3 C's. They want collateral, they want capital, and they want character, right? So if you've got the houses that you can leverage and that they can take as security, that's fine. That's your collateral. You can have cash in the bank, that's the capital. But if your character isn't sound, you're not getting the money or the funding. And my character with the bank was extremely good. The flips that Charlotte and I had achieved over the last 15 years, I mean, we've done 14 projects. So we showed that we had the ability to stick to a plan, execute the plan, and we were successful on all 14.
I had to say, banks like people who make the money.
They do.
We might even get your banker on at some page.
Yeah, I'd love to get the banker on here and I'd absolutely grill them. But they need the character.
Yes.
And we were lucky that, we weren't lucky, we put in the work.
Totally.
So we said that if something was to happen, we would achieve it. And we leveraged that and we're able to open offices and test it. So on the expansion, it was about, okay, well, can I have the capacity to run 2 offices? And we did. Could we open a 3rd? Yes, we did. Could we open a 4th? Yes, we did. 4, for me personally, listing and selling and running 4, that was my limit.
Yep.
Then it was the case of, can we go interstate? And we had so many people asking us, could you come to Sydney? Could you come to Perth? It was always no, because I had promised Rory that we would open New Zealand, and that was part of being able to attract him to the business as the CFO. And what I liked about New Zealand is that we had a connection. I studied there.
Yep.
He's from there, and we met the most beautiful girl, Kate Fairmaid, who not only was an incredible operator, her vision and her understanding of where real estate was going was fully aligned with ours. With the digital, with the communication, with the aesthetic, everything that we were putting down, she was picking up.
But it should be said, you probably met 20 people before.
Oh, we met heaps of people.
Which shows you how much you need to go through that process.
Well, what was funny, it was a 2-week research trip in New Zealand. And it was quite smart because before we decided to launch in New Zealand, I wanted to know who was interested in White Fox. So we filmed a Marty Fox tour to actually talk about the real estate industry. 5 cities, limited seats at each 5 cities. We sold out the entire trip and then COVID hit. But we had the data of all those names and numbers that were interested in White Fox, and I would go through that data once we'd refunded everyone. And that's where I built up my network of who I would reach out to see if they were interested in White Fox, which again, New Zealand is an amazing test country, litmus test on any business or product. So for instance, when I was at university, I was the first guy to go out there and start selling Nespresso coffee machines, because Nespresso ran the product in New Zealand as a test market to see how it would perform. Bottom of the planet, and if it failed, it wouldn't affect the rest of the world. So I think FPOS first launched in New Zealand, Nespresso coffee machines, and there's a plethora of other products that have launched there. So we took the same theory. Let's go to New Zealand and see if White Fox works without Marty Fox. And in the 11th hour, after the 2-week trip, I had not met a single person that had the capacity and the mental ability to pull it off. And Stumbles gives me a call and he goes, Marty, Louise Denton, another friend of ours from New Zealand, from uni days, called me and said, Marty's going to meet this girl, Kate Fairmaid. And I said to Rory, absolutely not. I'm done. I'm not meeting anyone. And he begged me and I said, fine. I was catching an aeroplane in like 3 hours time, met Kate at Ferg Bar, next to Ferg Burger, and we hit it off. Within an hour, we literally shook hands and agreed that we're gonna talk in depth. But she had met Mum, she had met Charlotte, we were kissing and hugging, we had a couple gins, a bowl of olives, and I was on an aeroplane. And over the next month, we had cut a deal.
And anyone who knows Kate or is from Queenstown will know that with Origin, what she was starting, there was a look and feel that was very White Fox. She, as you said, approached it in a similar manner. So that's been great. And obviously then New Zealand hums. I mean, there's challenges, let's be honest.
Massive challenges.
Market challenging, 2 different markets, Auckland and Queenstown, very different as well.
And it tested our capability. You know, can we get a business launched in a new country with new employment laws, contract laws, real estate laws, suppliers, everything, and can it still have the White Fox touch and feel? And I've got to say it's been 10 out of 10 in terms of the execution, and it's a new business. I mean, I called Kate the other day and I said, happy 1-year anniversary. And she said, I can't believe it feels like it's gone quick, but I feel like we've done so much. And you know, there's been over 30 odd sales, there's 12 staff, there's 3 offices. I mean, if someone had said, Marty, you're going to make 6 sales, you're going to have 1 office, and you're going to have a very happy business partner, and that's year 1 to establish the brand, would you be happy?
You can see we're in an office here.
Oh yeah, I think that's Rory's phone. Whose phone is that?
I think it's actually mine. You can just press ignore. I don't know why it's coming through. Close that.
And
this is raw and live, baby.
100%. And the fact that we've got what we've got after 1 year, I said to Kate, I said, you know, this is just the start, because as real estate businesses evolve, you tend to double your numbers. Well, it has happened for me. You double your numbers year on year. So this year looks amazing. There'll be close to 70 sales. There's probably going to be 15 to 20 plus staff. Oh no, there'd be 20 plus staff. There might be another office in Christchurch or in Wellington. So, you know, you've got to start from somewhere, but again, it's about the achievable steps, not being too grandiose in your thoughts that you're going to do this and that you're going to do that. You know, you just step by step, it compounds year on year.
So, okay, so you do New Zealand, and then as you said, people along the way have always said, for whatever reason, Sydney's always the one. They're always like Sydney, Sydney, Sydney. And you smartly, I believe, looked at it and went, there are White Fox type operators in Sydney, that's the truth, and it's a tricky market, right? Dominated by a certain few, in certain areas, it's broken up. Like, that wasn't the key spot for you, was it?
Very clicky. Like Auckland's very clicky. If we didn't have some of the networks that we have, it would be very difficult for an outsider to come in, particularly businesses from outside of New Zealand, even though we're 50-50, right? We're just as much Kiwi as we are Aussie. Make no mistake about that. And you know, even that's been a little bit trickier than Queenstown, because Queenstown's a transient city. You've got people from all over the world. It's a melting pot of people, and it's a melting pot of entrepreneurs, and people love getting around the new stuff. So, you know, Queenstown's very different from Auckland. And you're right, Sydney seems like the obvious next step, but for me, Sydney's the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle, because I also love the fact that people forget the cities like Perth. And Perth has just been one of the most amazing
But I love it. We've got to talk about this because I know you're saying that, but realistically, the first time you heard from Perth, you went, no. You basically hang up the phone. Tell us about that.
Got a DM from Ryan Smith.
Yep.
Hey mate, would you be interested in doing Perth? And my response was absolutely not. I was just, you know what, last year was a tough year, particularly in Melbourne.
Yes.
And
it's a bit out of sight, out of mind.
Look, it was November.
Yeah.
Kids were on school holidays in 2 weeks' time. We had a whole summer planned. And then this random guy says, would you be willing to do Perth? So I said no. And then he wrote back and he said, well, can we have a FaceTime? And I said, yeah, in a week or two. And he followed up and we had that FaceTime and we clicked. The way that he was dialed in on the phone, the questions that he was asking, the passion that he spoke with, and what he said that I genuinely believed that he could achieve, fired me back up again. So it just goes to show an incredible pitch can break any premeditated mindset. I was ready to rock and roll and hit pause. But he was so direct, so dialed in, so honest, so humble but hungry that it came with no hesitation for me to say, I'll see you in Perth in 4 days. And I flew my ass over there.
And what was it? Was it him, the market, the opportunity? Like what really sort of grabbed you, apart from what you just mentioned, that he took you in that sense?
He spoke with facts. He spoke with conviction. He explained what it could be. He explained how it could be. And he explained what he needed from me. And what he needed from me, I knew that I could deliver on because my team was capable. If you don't have the capability, don't do the venture, right? So don't do the venture and try and build the capability. Know that you've got the strength to be able to perform. I'm not going to sit at the bench press and try and bench 130. I don't have the capability to do it, but I'll push 60, 70 and then I'll build up. We were in a unique spot where we hadn't tested it, but we were so confident off the back of New Zealand. What did we do? We went, well, we did New Zealand at the start of the year. Don't have to learn new contract law, don't need to learn new employment law, don't need to learn all these new bits and bobs. Let's do it. So that was the key. And then when we got there and we could see the opportunity, that's then when things got really excited to the point where Rory was getting married in Wanaka, Taylor was getting married under the Lucky Bean tree at the back of my place, I was on school holidays, you were hosting the Aussie Open, and we still pulled it off.
It was a pretty, and that's probably an episode in itself. To be honest with you, we should do an episode just on opening Perth because I think that there's a lot of lessons learned.
So
maybe we have
many.
Ryan on if he's over or David, but I think just in itself, distilling down for any business really that's able to do what I think we did in that period of time was pretty special.
But also just on Ryan and David. So Ryan came into the picture not with David. Ryan came into the picture with somebody else, and that somebody else did not eventuate. But Ryan was in, and David was a contact, a friend of his that was, just there.
Yeah.
Ryan didn't want to do it alone. And that's how you know a leader, when he says, I'm good at one thing, but I want a partner on my journey that can balance the books in this other area. And that's when David, 26, 27-year-old, great agent with so much to offer, but a very different leadership style to Ryan, then stepped up and we became business partners. And Ryan said, I'd rather go 50-50 with you than 100% without you. And that in itself is leadership. And it's what I was brought up on from Graham Wilson when I got into real estate and became a business person when I started my first software company, which was Touchbase. Half a pie is better than no pie. You're always better to share than to try and take it all on your own.
And that is an ethos of this company, let's be honest, because that's another thing that was unusual to them and probably to other markets as well, in that the agents in this company are, they share.
You can't go to listings alone. You can't be on marketing alone. You can't go close a deal and not have another agent there, because what you're doing is you're denying someone the ability to learn something live. Scripts and dialogues in the boardroom, that's fine, whatever, right? But it's not the same as learning it in real life. So every single time, Lana Samuels last night, FaceTimed me at 9:30, was closing a deal. And she had Michael Derham sitting right next to her. Because in that close, even Mike, who's a 10-year agent, could then see how she allocated the close. That's just something that's been embedded in me, because when I was a junior agent, I was always told, listen, 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 listen. Just constantly gather information and then spin it and package it as your own.
So in terms of then the future growth of this business, we've sort of made intimations of what comes next and how you do that. How have you approached the next steps, the next people you want to partner with, the next areas you want to be in? Like, what is that mindset for you without getting too big too quick? Because that's one thing that businesses have to be very careful of.
Yep.
It can be a real downfall. And then being strategic on the places that we pick and the people that we
Yeah, so I think doing it the way in which we're doing it ensures that there's skin in the game, and there's care, and there's risk. When there's risk, you know that you've really got people's attention. I've never reached out to anyone sort of very left of centre. There's a relationship there, and I think particularly the amount that I've produced on Instagram, on stories, people getting an insight into my family and work life. There's a familiarity. Yeah, with them already. So I'm not having to pitch who I am, and they know the brand. And there's a DM, or there's a phone call, or there's a text message, and it's a catalyst. It's like, how do you get one listing in a street and then get the next one? That next one saw the performance on the first one. So Perth had seen New Zealand, New Zealand had seen Melbourne, and the other states that we're opening have obviously seen the execution with Perth. So they know that the capability is there. It then just comes down to the commercials. How does it work? Who does what? Key responsibilities and leadership. Leadership is the key. If you haven't got the right leadership within the right city, in the right market, it does not work.
So without giving too much away, where can this go? In all seriousness, like, is this business genuinely, do you see this as a national, global, specific markets that you want to target?
I see it as the first privately owned, JV'd real estate boutique agency in the luxury space that is extremely nimble, very smart, unreplicable. I feel that we are the ones that set the tone and others follow. And I want to maintain that type of leadership for the industry, because I feel that we've made the industry better. We've helped unchain the agents within this industry. No matter what agency they're at, I know that there are things that we do and continue to do and will reinvent that will help better the agent's experience, but also the customer's ability to get as much for their asset as possible through great marketing.
And that's one of the things really smart about this business, is that it's not like we don't stand there and beat our chest and go, we're the best at everything, you have to use us. Because the fact of the matter is, there are great operators out there. We know that, but we're confident in what we do.
Yeah, and we've got mates at so many agencies, totally. Heaps of mates. And we are not better than any other agency. Right. There is no doubt about that. I could go put my house with the people across the road at Kane Burton or Marshall White, and they're going to do a great job. Yep. I've got no doubt about that. Yep. We're just different.
Yes.
And if you want something that's a little bit different, then we as an alternative are not risky.
Yes.
We used to be risky. And that's what I love.
Yes.
I love the fact that we can offer the alternative, but to the level and standard that you would expect from a 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old brand, with a little bit of magic sprinkled on top.
But you must love it, because the agents here, particularly the old stagers have been here a long time, now walk in with confidence because they don't have to explain the business. The guys in Perth and New Zealand are getting this little bit of pep in their step because they're having success, and they're leaning on these guys as well. You must just love that.
Oh, like today, no, it was actually yesterday, I had an agent in Perth reaching out to Mike DiCasio here in Stonington, asking advice on pulling a particular deal together. We had agents in Perth refer a listing to the agents in Wanaka, in Hawea, Lake Hawea of all places. So the cross-pollination of a boutique firm that shares the same database, this is what's different.
Yes.
You know, you've got your Sotheby's and your Jealous Craigs and whatever they might be, but at the end of the day, they can't just tap in and find someone's name and number, because they're different ownership structures. Yeah. Yeah. We run an open source backend. So everything is controlled here at HQ, which is amazing for the JVs because they don't then get lagged with all the wages that sit up here. So they're really efficient, nimble, fast-moving business entities because there's 1 or 2 people in admin, which we're not going to give all the secret sauce away, but it's an agency full of agents that are wanting to do great marketing, great content, and amazing deals, with the think tank being us up here.
It is a unique business.
It really is. It's there's so much that we can talk about, and
we will.
and I feel that we are 1 year in, because New Zealand's a year old. Everything between
First a month old.
Yeah, first a month old. It did more revenue than everyone put together in its first month. That's how bloody good they started. But from 2017 up until the end of last year, that was phase 1 of building the foundation, building the reputation. Getting a job on the block was also great credibility for me and the brand, that if Channel 9 can trust me, well then this is an agency that you can trust as well as a consumer. But we are in year 1 of phase 2, and this next 10 years is where you'll see WhiteFox become a global powerhouse.
Strap in.
Let's do it.
Oh, it's always great to chat. This is another episode of WTF. Remember, you can get it at any of your podcasting places, Spotify, YouTube, on our Instagram as well. Always good to be with you. Who's coming next? We don't know.
Don't know. You've got a good list of people, I hope.
There's some interesting cats coming on.
And if you'd like to be on, send a message.
Yeah,
Reach
like
out.
I said, comment what you'd like to hear, who you'd like to hear, any topics you would like to talk about. But I think we should definitely dive into that Perth thing, because I think that's interesting for anyone who's going outside their state to see how to do that. So
Absolutely.
good to be with you.
Thanks, Shuey.
See you next time, guys.